What was the Apostle Paul's three-point message to the governor Felix that scared the hell out of this governor? This message is actually given to us in Acts chapter 24, and I find this very fascinating because I'm curious as to how Paul talks to non-believers. Now, we have the epistles of Paul. These are messages to Christians, but how does he actually talk to unbelievers, and what is the message that he has for them? And that's why I find this passage very fascinating. Are you ready to get into the mind of the Apostle Paul as he presents the gospel to the governor Felix? Here in Acts chapter 24, verse 25, it says, "As Paul talked about righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, Felix was afraid and said, 'That's enough for now. You may leave.'" He didn't want to hear anymore. What was Paul's three-point message? The first is righteousness. That is, there has to be a sense in our heart as to what is right and what is wrong. If human beings don't understand right and wrong, then there's no way we can bring the gospel to them. But God has written his laws into the hearts of all human beings. Some people, of course, they have their consciences seared where they don't understand right and wrong. But most human beings, they have a sense when they have done right and when they've done wrong. Every one of you know that. Every sinner knows that. There's times where they feel good about their actions and other times they feel guilt. So Paul deals with this subject of righteousness. The second, he deals with self-control. Now that brings us to another part related to righteousness, is that self-control is the ability to do what you want to do or what you don't want to do. In other words, self-control is within oneself. You can't blame another person for making you act wrongly. You can't say, well, I'm this way because of the way my parents raised me, or I'm this way because a bunch of my friends did this and I was just going along with them. No, self-control means you have the power to decide whether you do right and wrong. And this is Paul's second point of the message. And the final message is he taught about the judgment to come. In other words, what does this all mean? You know what's right, you know what's wrong. It is you alone that's doing right or doing wrong. You can't blame anyone else. But you know what Paul says? One day God is going to hold you to be accountable for everything you've ever done. In other words, without the teaching of the final judgment day, there is no fear of God. That's why one of the core teachings of Christianity is that all human beings will be brought before God to give an account of their lives. And that includes the Christian. And even though we're saved, we still have to give an account of the things we did in this body, whether good or bad. This is Paul's three-point message.